we hit a real crisis point just as we were launching into the vet market. My business partner wanted to zig, I wanted to zag. I was the minority shareholder, and the partnership fell apart. And it fell apart at a very critical point where we had this contract with Elanco, and Elanco saying like, all right, guys, let's get started. And like in the background, you talk about like the frantic peddling behind the scenes. In the background, we're out of money, we're in debt, like the partnership's falling apart, has ended, the partnership has ended. And it's sort of like, okay, can I rescue this contract? Like, how's that going to work? And there was just barely enough money in the contract to satisfy all the obligations. And I was the minority shareholder. And it was, well, VetSuccess was very much a phoenix from the ashes kind of thing. And so that kind of led into that sort of financial fear.
Hi, I'm Mike Pincus, co-founder of Connect CPA and your host at GrowthTales. Today's guest is Martin Traub-Werner, who is the founder and CEO at Vetsuccess, a veterinary data analytics and business intelligence organization. Martin was a major disruptor in the vet space, where he and his team at Vetsuccess enabled vet practices to take control of their data and drive better decisions and insights into their practices. Martin scaled the company from infancy through product market fit and ultimately to exit, where he eventually sold the business to VetSource, who's one of the leaders in providing pharmacy, technology, and business services to the pet health industry. In this episode, I discussed with Martin what it takes to build a world-class culture, the importance of understanding the financials intimately, from the P&L statement to budgets to your balance sheet strength, and finally, how to develop leaders who are so strong that they think and act like a founder. I really enjoyed my conversation with Martin, and I hope you really enjoy the episode. Martin, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate you joining us on GrowthTales.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks, Mike.
And Martin, we've known each other for a long time. I from a business perspective, but I also consider you a friend. You're someone that I look up to as an entrepreneur for what you achieve with VetSuccess, and I'm just really excited to have you here today because I feel like for people that don't know about VetSuccess, it is an opportunity for them to learn about what I believe should be in a textbook on how to scale a business.
I mean, like you make it sound like it was really planned and thoughtful, and like, frankly, there's that image of the swan, looking so graceful above the water, but down below they're pedaling frantically. That's that's behind the scenes that, we've had the conversation before, but journeys are never linear. So I'm not sure about making it a textbook case. I mean, we did great. We built something amazing. But it was not without risk and work and troubles.
Well, you did make it look easy, Martin, and I think this brings me to just the first thing I want to ask you about, because I believe you come from an HR background. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a graduate degree in HR.
So my first question, and I think it's a question I've always wanted to ask you, how did you get into the vet space? Like, what is the origin story of VetSuccess, given that you do come from an HR background?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be clear, my HR background was this becomes a much longer answer, so I'll try to shortcut it a bit.
That's all right. Go for it.
My time in HR was really stemmed from an admiration of the business process, right? Of like being in business, right? So I used to say like, okay, well, the accountants will get the numbers, the finance folks will get the numbers to be what the numbers are going to be, and the engineers will get the machines and process to work. Machines and process are supposed to work. But if you can figure out the people part, man, that's the magic. Right? And so I went off and did an HR degree because I thought it was like the key to businesses. Companies really abuse values. Don't value what HR professionals can really bring.
Right.
And, I was working in HR in a factory, and a woman comes into my office and says, like, Susie called me a bitch. What are you going to do about it? And I was like, in my head, I was like, well, I know what I'm going to fucking do. I'm going to quit. Because whether you are a bitch or not a bitch, I don't care. Like, I just want to work
Right.
with adults who just get the job done, who have, have a good job and work, do the work and no drama. And
Right.
like, I just couldn't, and HR is sort of like supposed to be some like babysitter. And I'm like, that is just not what I envisioned for my career, or frankly for a successful HR function.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I didn't last long in corporate HR, and ended up working very closely with an entrepreneur who was a great mentor and a great sales guy, and we worked together for 10 years on a project. It was about sales and marketing integration. And we sold, so we had a tool called SalesLink, and SalesLink was a little email engine. This is just as sort of email marketing is coming up.
Like a tech play.
Yeah. It was like, we did a CRM, we built a CRM system, and then we built this email engine, and both like wildly underfunded and outrageously, crazy things to build when you've got like Salesforce.com and MailChimp and those
Well,
kinds
give me
of things.
context here. What year are we talking about, Martin?
2003, 4 until about 13.
Funding wasn't
12,
even
until
that
about
maybe
12,
that
13.
common back then. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of the early days of like I remember getting my, well, so it's fine. It's fine. Anyways, so we're doing this project, and SalesLink was this little email engine where you could customize an email after any interaction. Right? And so I cold called into Pfizer Animal Health in Montreal, a guy by the name of John Hayward, who is still in the industry today and who I see at conferences to this day. And he said, Martin, what you have here is a really good solution for the compliance problem in veterinary medicine. And I said, John, absolutely. It is a great solution to the compliance problem in veterinary medicine. He says, listen, I've got my team coming into Montreal for a strategy session in a few weeks. Why don't you come in, do a presentation, and let's pilot this in practices across the country. I said, absolutely, that sounds great. So make a date, get off the phone, and quickly go to Google and Google compliance problem in veterinary medicine. So I had no idea what the hell he was talking about.
Serendipity. Wow.
Yeah, right. It's just sort of being open to opportunities, right? My wife tells a story of her early days in Toronto's really big, successful law firms, and the founder of the firm at some point came and talked to the new associates, and said, well, it's very simple. I used to go out to lunches and talk to my friends and ask them what they were working on, and they'd say, I'd like to help you with that, right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to help you with that opens doors, right? If somebody says to me, you've got a solution to the problem in veterinary medicine, compliance problem in veterinary medicine, absolutely, it's a great solution.
Open up Google and you find out.
Just figure it out. And so Pfizer Animal Health put us with this little email program, put us into like 90 practices across the country, which is like, if I think about it now, right, it's like, it's a really big project in the Canadian context. In the US context, it's kind of like 90 practices. That's like a rounding error. That's like a quarter of Florida.
No, but for a first, that's a quick like win for,
yeah. It was pretty good. But as practices were using the tool, right, like this required follow up at the front desk. And so what, of course, I've now learned over the years is that anything that requires additional work on behalf of the veterinary team is going to face some stiff resistance with good reason.
Right.
Not enough time, not enough resource. Their days are a day-to-day firefight. And so they said, well, great tool, great process, love the follow-up, but we need you to send the emails. I said, great. To do that, I just need access to all your data. And they're like, okay. And I was like, wait a second. Like, I need access to all your data. They're like,
Some
okay.
NDAs can fix that.
I'm like, okay. So like, just like one thread following another thread. Okay. I now need access to all the data. I get access to the data. Figure out data extraction. Okay. Who's doing data extraction? Well, there was one company doing it particularly well. The States data, and they had sort of envisioned part of their growth to do sort of mass extraction, and I had a mass extraction application. And so we started doing that, and then there was normalization problems, and like just over and over again, just like one problem, solve that problem, opens up another problem, solve that problem, opens up another problem, solves that problem. But next thing you know, like you wake up and you've got an actual solution. So what happened is I was putting these, how did this work? We were using the data. We never ultimately ended up doing triggered marketing for many, many years after that, even though that's when we got what we got the data for. Because once we started normalizing the data, I started presenting it back to the vets. And I was like, Doc, you've got a leaky bucket. Like you're all excited that you got 15 new clients, but there are 25 new clients that you saw 2 years ago that have not come back into your practice.
Right.
And so your practice is actually shrinking. And as we call this, the net change in active patients, right? So that's a metric that is now pretty well understood. And I was like, here, it's all here in the numbers, right? And I put this big spreadsheet in front of them. And they're like, I don't see that. I'm like, do you need me to draw you a picture? Yes, I need you to draw me a picture. Okay, fine. So I go put it in graph format and sort of show the picture. They're like, oh, that's really a problem. Yeah. Okay. Well, how can I see these numbers on a regular basis? I'm like, well, okay, let's figure out how to get these reports. And so we quickly pivoted with Pfizer Animal Health into practice reporting around parasiticides. And then we converted that into a relationship with Elanco Animal Health down in the States, which was a very successful, very big, important, and it was an enabling contract, right? If I had to sell reports, practice reports, data analytics and reporting to practices onesie twosie at $99 a month, that would have been a much harder road
to scale. Yeah.
There was some real visionaries and real very smart people at Elanco at the time, great leaders, Jamie McDougall, Jessica Petty, really committed, working like good thinkers, and like super committed to the industry. And we developed stuff together. It was great. It was really successful. And that we just took all the money that Elanco gave us, poured it right back into the company, and slowly grew. It's a really long origin story.
No, it's incredible. Did you find that there was a knowledge gap? Like when you first presented data to these vet practices, like a big part of this is they first have to understand that they need data. Like you mentioned in that first story, they didn't even understand that, like in the SaaS world, you'd be like net revenue retention. But like if you look at a doctor, like they're not thinking about data analytics. How did you crack the code on just letting them know it's a need they have?
Yeah, I mean, today it's almost ridiculous. But in my early days, in my early presentations, there's this scene from Moneyball, and
Great movie, by the way.
Great movie. But and Jonah Hill's character does this whole like speech about how through analytics they can get on base more often. And it's
Hmm.
like, and he's doing his player selection based on their ability to get on base, right?
Hmm.
And the scouts are all like, no, we need like masculine, big looking players.
Yep.
And, Jonah Hill's character is all like, no, we want this guy. That guy doesn't never get to hit. I know, but he walks more than everybody else. Right. And so like I used to play this clip of Moneyball, the Island of
Brilliant.
Misfit Toys clip from Moneyball. Now today you play it. It was like, well, you're an idiot. Of course we all know we need data and analytics. Don't be stupid. Right. But in those days, it was like, and we're not talking, we're talking 12 years ago, 15 years ago, 15, about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. And I find it interesting because I actually think there's still a percentage of the market that doesn't have great data, and obviously you disrupted an industry by providing that data at that time. And Martin, I want to bounce to something new here, which is you that was getting the product off the ground and the education piece. But once you started to hit like scale, the next piece that I think you guys were really unique on was you managed your financials very closely. And I think beyond that, you as a CEO of a company had a deeper understanding than most in terms of just knowing where your metrics were to a level that I still find surprising to this day. So I want to first ask you, where did that business acumen side come from on understanding your numbers as you started to go to these vet practices, started to sign deals? And secondly is, how did you figure out what that profit and loss should look like? Because you were growing quickly and building a team. How did you figure that out, that plan around growing financially?
The only thing I'm listening to the question. I'm like, fear of failure, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, I didn't have a plan B. I did not have investors. I had commitments to not just my family, um, uh, but also to my team and their families.
Hmm.
And it's like, I was scared shitless.
Yes.
So, um, the other piece of the origin story that we don't need to get into, but just like that is there is, uh, the partnership that I had for many years, where the partnership that I built the CRM system with, that I built SalesLink with, we hit a real crisis point,
Hmm.
just as we were launching into the vet market. Um, my business partner wanted to zig, I wanted to zag.
Hmm.
I was the minority shareholder, and partnership,
Hmm.
and and it fell apart at a very critical point where we had this contract with Elanco, and Elanco saying like, "All right, guys, let's get started." And like in the background, you talk about like the frantic peddling behind the scenes. In the background, we're out of money, we're in, like
Hmm.
the partnership's falling apart. The partnership has ended, and it's sort of like, okay, can I rescue this contract? Like, how's that going
Hmm.
to work? And there was just barely enough money in the contract to satisfy all the obligations. And I was a minority shareholder, and it was, well, that success was very much a phoenix from the ashes kind of thing.
Really? Okay.
Um, and, and so that kind of led into that sort of financial fear. It was
Hmm.
like, um, and so to this day, like, I know you don't like to talk about sort of Connect CPA or use this
Hmm.
as a platform to talk
Yeah.
about your business, but like that's when we met, right? We
Hmm.
were putting the pieces together, and I had 1 or 2 year. I had angel investors that kind of rescued me out of that messy situation, and they helped me on the financials, doing the financials for 12 months, 24 months, but I didn't feel connected enough to the financials. And
Hmm.
so that's when we started working with you guys.
Hmm.
And to this day, I say my favorite meeting of the month was when we'd review the financials with my entire team. I think it was my team's least favorite meeting of the month. It was my absolute favorite meeting of the month because we would review budget to actual on every line item in the income statement and review the variances and why there was a variance and just really understand the business from the numbers. If you were up on revenue, why were you up on revenue? If you were down on revenue, why were you down on revenue? Cost of goods sold side, understanding COGS, understanding all of the levers, and that just built muscle memory into the business, which made daily decisions really connected to the P&L. And so, like, fast forward, here I am, successfully exited Vetsuccess in 2018, stayed on with the acquiring company for a few years, but along the way, started a bookkeeping business for veterinary practices to replicate that exact, the hypothesis that I share with vet practices is, like, I really believe that businesses that are under financial control, that's the wellspring and a proxy for being under all the other kinds of control in your business, under IT control, inventory control, HR control, drug log control. Like, all of that stuff comes from knowing your business inside and out and the intricacies. And vet practices are wildly more complicated than just about any other business I've seen. So.
And you have a deep understanding of it. And I did not know that story of the adversity leading into Vetsuccess. So that explains the passion for the financials and the unit economics and understanding it.
Oh man, it was really bad. It was like one of the angels. I remember that he's a good buddy. One of the angels investors, I did the presentation that showed my sort of pro forma P&L, and he's like, "Well, like, what are you going to eat? Cat food? Like, look at the salary you're drawing." I'm like, "Man, if I have to eat cat food to get this thing going, yeah, I'm going to eat cat food." And so the angel investors kind of rescued me in that time, and we did a subsequent transaction. They did really well. I'm still on their Christmas card list, and it was good.
I want to ask you about that. Like, now you have VetBooks, and obviously you can't take the entrepreneur out of Martin. So I did not expect you not to continue to go into new ventures and build new things out. But I wanted to ask you, when did you make the decision to get out or to sell? Like, you were growing, scaling, big team. I'll touch on culture in a second, because world-class culture, in my opinion, at Vetsuccess. Why move on to another venture? What was the decision behind that?
It was less about moving on to another venture and really more about protecting what we built. The veterinary industry continues to this day to consolidate. At the time, the consolidation was fast and furious and wild. And it is I think to this day, it's very hard to be a successful, large, independent player in the veterinary space. Very much, the way I describe the industry is it's kind of broken up into teams. There's sort of Team IDEX, which is sort of a laboratory and diagnostics company, but has also built like lots of technology plays, lots of workflow plays, and is deeply ingrained into veterinary practices because of the importance of diagnostics. And they've sort of parlayed their diagnostics into a world-class platform of sorts. There's Zoetis that started and whose primary revenue is still pharmaceuticals, but they've done things like gone into insurance and all kinds of other businesses, right? So you've got Team Zoetis, you've got Team IDEX, you had Team Covetris, which was one of the big distributors that was, weird, another topic for another day, but in a weird transaction, was purchased by a small home delivery pharmacy. This massive distributor was purchased by this. There's like this.
Oh, really?
The minnow ate the whale and then wondered why it had heartburn.
Right.
But they have like a massive platform, massive footprint. They've got distribution and technology. And then there's VetSource, who I ultimately sold to, had just taken some investment, was looking to sort of scale that platform, and subsequently, Mars had always been on the cap table, and subsequently Mars has taken even greater interest in the business. So there's sort of team members. At the time when I sold it was team members. But like with these massive forces and lots of capital and people starting to pay attention to what we're doing and building competitive product, and like I just had to de-risk it a little bit. It was really hard to keep that, I mean, our line of credit was still personally guaranteed.
For sure.
So it's just sort of, you kind of got to de-risk that a little bit. And we had like 30 employees or 40 employees. Right? It's like it was big.
Mm-hmm. I would say that just the idea that as an owner of a business, I make a analogy to like a great TV show. It's almost better when it comes to an end where you feel like you're flying high and you achieve something, and like when you watch like a TV series, they just take it a little bit too far, and you're like, yeah, they should have ended that. But when you go out on a high, I mean,
that's where the saying "jump the shark" comes from, right? It's like Henry Winkler in Happy Days,
right?
Jump the shark, and it was like, okay, you guys have just taken this too far. It just didn't work. Yeah, that's a really good analogy, Mike. It's really hard to give up your baby. And there's a part of me that will always have my heart with Vetsuccess. But, I learned a ton from my wife, Tamara, who, like, even with our own kids, like from a very early, very, very early on when we started having kids, there's this sort of recognition that we were like raising little humans that had to like fly the nest, and that was our job. Like our job was to make them independent, good, contributing people. They were not ours forever. And I forget we'd be talking about that before I was going off to university next year, and I'm like,
that's a big change.
Oh, I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
And so taking that very same approach to your business, right? It's like, it's not mine forever. It's, it becomes something bigger than any one person, and you kind of give it life and let it go.
And the team you built, like it, first of all, like you said, I think it's all special because it lives for a period of time, but that's almost what makes it more special. But the culture you built, Martin, I saw it firsthand. I mean, I attended a number of the events that you guys put on at Vetsuccess, and I personally have never seen anything like it. I mean, and that's why I started this conversation by saying it was like a textbook. Like if you are running a business, what do you want your team culture to look like? And I just had never seen, I've seen some great cultures. I've never seen that family-esque environment where everyone had everyone's back. Everyone was cheering everybody on. I guess my question for you is, I don't think having a background in HR is enough to foster a culture like that. There's something obviously bigger than that to build a culture within a company. How did you do it? I guess that's the question.
I get asked this question a lot, and there's a couple of things, and it kind of goes back to that origin story of like, Susie called me a bitch. What are you going to do about it? I'm like, I have no tolerance for that. Like, I just don't, right? And so, a couple of things. Hiring slow and firing fast is really important. Super hard to do. Hiring slow is easy.
Right.
The hiring slow part is super easy.
Right.
Although even there, like people will sort of say like, yep, warm body, take it, we'll need it. And I'm like, no, you really have to do your due diligence, right? And then, the fire fast part, we all fail at, like myself included, but like letting go of people and being okay with letting go of people. The conversation that we have, and this is particularly true in the Canadian context, that frustrates the hell out of me, is people are like, oh, I've got this person on my team, and I really they're just not pulling their weight. I really gotta get rid of them. I'm like, so what's taking you so long? I can't afford to fire them. And what do you mean? oh, the severance obligation is too big. I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, it's
Right.
just money. They are killing your business
Yeah.
today. They're holding you back. They're an albatross. It's just like, it's just not helping your business. And by the way, you're sending a terrible message to the rest of your team, because if you know it, the rest of your team knows it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being picky about who's on the team, and then just being really generous, with time and money, not outrageous, but just
Mm-hmm.
like, Katie McLean, who
Yeah.
um, was the COO and sort of
Mm-hmm.
my 2IC, and is frankly one of the best leaders I've ever met in my entire life. He's
Mm-hmm.
magic. But she used to submit her vacation time to me. I'd be like, McLean, I don't care when
You
you're
don't
going on
care.
vacation.
Exactly.
I just don't care. Like,
That's your leader. Yeah.
don't leave your team hanging. And like, I don't care if you take 3 weeks. I don't care if you take 6 weeks. Like, just
Right.
take the time you need. She's like, so it became a joke, right? It was like, by the third or fourth year we'd been working together, it would be January, and she had a plan, and she'd like plan it all out. And she'd be like, look, I know you don't give a shit, but here you go.
Yes.
Here's when I'm
Yes.
going on vacation.
Yes.
I'm like, same conversation. Still don't care. So like, just sort of letting people be adults, and like, just work at the kind of place you want to work at, and like, no drama, like, and support people. Right. So.
Yeah, the standards mixed with the appreciation and generosity is that special mix, but definitely difficult to balance. And that's where I have a huge amount of respect for what you guys did, because it's what you just commented on, is that it was mixed with high standards, meaning it wasn't just you treated people incredible, but you didn't have any standards. VetSuccess was a well-oiled machine, and the bar that you set for each team member you mentioned, you set it very high. Like, your comment was the rest of the team would figure it out. And did that continue the whole way through the journey? Like, all the way up to the end, that the team would spot strong performers versus weak performers? It was part of that culture to keep the standards of VetSuccess?
Yeah. I mean, by and large, we, we didn't part company with that many people. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, some people sort of, opted out on their own. A few people we had to part company with. And the other thing is that, like, the company changes every 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And people change as well, right? And so somebody who was really great for one stage of the company, like, something changes, a new product line or a new competitor comes in, or something just changes the way you have to operate. And another person may not be up to or interested in, or, figure that out. So, I can't think of the exact situation, but I kind of feel like we had conversations, for example, with people and be like, listen, we're going this way. If you want to come this way with us, then this is what it's going to take. If you don't want to come this way with us, then like, just take the next 2 months, and your job is to find another job.
Right.
And like, we'll pay you while we do that, so that you don't have to take any stress. We love you, but like, recognize that we just may be growing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I remembered as you were asking that question, Mike, is when I sold the company, I was asked to, identify sort of key leaders who were super important. And so to a person that I named in that list, I realized that in some future world, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, if I got a call from any one of those people who ostensibly reported to me, but who I kind of felt like I wanted to solve, if any one of those people were to call me and say, "Hey, I'm working on a project and I'd like you to come work for me," I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd be done. I wouldn't think twice, because every single one of them were such great people, good thinkers,
Mhm.
committed, hardworking, fun, funny, that I will follow them to the end of the earth. Like, and that holds true to this day as I'm sort of thinking, through some of those people. I already name checked McLean. I won't name check the rest of the team, but just great people who I want to spend time with and who I want to follow. And so I think that's a good measure as well. If you can imagine working for the people who work for you, if you're not excited about them, then how are the people that they have working for them supposed to be excited? Right?
That's great advice because that leadership team, as you like you said, you had a big team, so those leaders have to carry the same core values you did when you were the only one directing traffic within your organization. Martin, you scaled a business. You mentioned you had adversity. You dealt with investors. You had an exit. You pretty much checked every box of the things that entrepreneurs go through, and some that many never get to experience, obviously. So, do you have any advice for people that are either starting a business or in a business currently, and they're navigating the waters of decision making? And like you said, it's like that duck underwater that's pedaling really, really fast and trying
Yeah.
to stay balanced. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs if they're in the mix right now?
I mean, the toughest thing I think is just to stay calm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, um, overshare, maybe overshare. Uh, um, my sales projections for the first quarter are
Mm-hmm.
not going the way I want them to go, right? They're
Right.
fine. Like, they're great. We're doing fine. But like, I had put some aggressive sales projections out there. And as a result, my budget is aggressive, and,
Yeah.
you miss a couple of months and it's like, oh shit, like all of a sudden you might have to make some tweaks,
Mm-hmm.
and like, we're fine. Everything's great. But I still to this day, right? I kind of wake up going like,
That
oh,
feeling.
I don't know. And but just kind of making peace with, I think what I've come to understand, and I've made, and I think this is really important, is to make peace with the roller coaster, right? Because if you celebrate the highs uh, too much,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're going to be humbled because there are going to be lows. And if you despair the lows too much, you'll end up in a cycle where you don't leave open the opportunity to capitalize on the stuff that turns the next day. The
Mm-hmm.
next day, there's going to be a phone call, or you create a new partnership or something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just trying to stay emotionally neutral, which is, anybody who knows me really well would think is a wildly ironic thing for me to say, because I, I, I tend to, over dramatize the highs and over catastrophize the lows.
Don't we all?
But that's sort of what I try to work on, at least in, and, and it's funny because the team I'm working with now, periodically will come up with like, oh, this is this really bad thing just happened. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, today is just a bad day. Like, tomorrow, next week, it'll be fine. And to bring it kind of full circle, a lot of it comes back to just understanding your income statement, understanding your P&L, because that's where it all happens. I mean, you'll remember our meetings maybe where, we'd review the P&L and be like, okay, let's review the balance sheet. I'm like, balance sheet? Care about the
What
balance
does that
sheet?
do?
Who cares? Who cares about the balance sheet? This is all an operations P&L activity. And obviously the balance sheet's important.
Well, it brings full circle to like my final question was going to be what are you up to right now? And you mentioned VetBooks, and now you're intimately involved in the numbers, and obviously you have a deep understanding of the vet industry. What is VetBooks up to, and where do you see yourself taking that company?
So let me start backwards. Where I see myself taking that company, I've been asked a bunch of times, like already, like, oh, are you going to sell your company again? And I'm like, you never say never, but like I've already done that
Mm-hmm.
once, and it's like I'm just having a lot of fun putting the pieces together, building something of great value. We're at just shy of 80 clients now.
Wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's a sizable business. Um, as you know, it is wildly complex and
Of
really
course.
hard. Oh my gosh, it's so
Service is
hard.
always complex, right?
It's
Yeah.
service, right? Like I had a
Yeah.
product company. It was great, right?
Yeah.
But now service, it's like, oh shit, like this is different. This is hard.
Yeah.
So I'm having fun unpacking that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a real opportunity for us to um, deliver some benchmarks into the industry again. Um, Not competitive benchmarks with Vetsuccess, with what we did already once, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very uncommon to find a data set of veterinary practice financials that are
Oh,
that are
for
unified.
sure.
Right? We do them all the same way. We use the same
Mm-hmm.
chart of accounts. Everything's you know
Standardized.
standardized and
Yeah.
accounted for the same way. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to provide some leadership around data, which we're sort of just in the early parts of exploring some of that. And increasing the financial literacy of these small business owners. I mean, at the end of the day, uh, both Vetsuccess and frankly VetBooks have the same mission, which is to help small businesses be successful. I really, really, really believe in the value of small businesses, small and familial businesses. All these big, swing for the fences, raise $1 billion or several
Mm-hmm.
hundred million
Right.
dollars, outspend, right? Spend more than outspend revenue. Like those are that's a different world. And
Yes.
frankly, to me, it's not even a real world, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I used to joke about the fact that VetSuccess made more money than Uber. Not revenue, but profit,
Yeah.
right? For a lot of years.
Yeah.
And so helping, and really the real world is built out of small businesses. And so helping small businesses be successful by whether it was, that success case, understanding their underlying business intelligence and data analytics, or in the VetBooks case, understanding their financials and really improving their financial acumen. Like you can do a lot of things when you've got a profitable business, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's a profitable business and knowing what levers you can pull and getting feedback mechanisms to understand how the decisions you make in the day to day play out from the financials is cool. So
You knew profit was sexy before it was sexy. It's coming back in vogue though.
and I just don't understand. Like, where else in the world can you go and say like, okay, I'm going to spend $1 million. I'm only going to make $100,000, and that's okay.
No default dead date, right? So
What is that?
look, I obviously see I see the vast array of different industries and scaling, and there is a, in my opinion, a place for a binary outcome when you have something that has the ability to put rocket fuel on it. But to your point, Martin, that is like the 1% to 0.5% of businesses that have what I would say is something so uniquely special that it scales, and there's a place for it. But it's really, I think, good advice. And you recognize this, I think, early on in your journey, that you have a lot of optionality as a profitable business. It makes a lot of sense. And I saw you doing that with that focus years ago. It's interesting how smart entrepreneurs and business leaders, what you see them doing 5 years ago, all of a sudden becomes the new norm. And the days of 2021 look like they're behind us, of sky high valuations, all those things. And so, yeah, times have changed
And,
again.
and, and that's the cruelty of low interest rate environments and free money is
Mm-hmm.
it's like a carnival fun house. Like it turns the world completely upside down
Upside down.
and has like real perverse incentives money is free, and therefore you should go and hire a bunch of people. And then all of a sudden money's not free. And it's like, okay, let's fire more people. I'm like, wait a second. That's just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No. And that's why, speaking to entrepreneurs that have had that stability like throughout their journey, and that's why I said the textbook play, that's how I started this. I don't want to hold you much longer, Martin, but what I would want to say is that huge respect for what you've done all the way up to exit, and congrats on the exit. And I know you spend your time now on the West Coast. I'd love to visit you sometime on the West Coast where we can discuss shop and business.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome anytime. It's very, very beautiful out here.
Well, it's morning time for you, and so I'll let you enjoy the sunshine and everything else on the West Coast. But thanks so much for joining me, Martin. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.